Then I would say we will start our webinar with a, I must say, quite a catchy title, How to Get Unlimited Cloud Storage. We, on CloudWoods, but on the web, I mean, you hear a lot of people advertising unlimited cloud storage, but in reality, I mean, we know that it's not all shiny and rosy when you look at the actual unlimited offering of cloud backup services, because there are hidden limits. And if you only choose one provider, I mean, you're not really, or at least in the majority of cases, you're not really in control of what the provider is doing with your data. So in this webinar, we are going to look at a couple of different solutions on how you can make sure you're essentially optimally prepared for your cloud backups and get up to unlimited cloud storage, and also maybe to spread the wings a little bit and combine several cloud storage solutions to also increase the security for your data that you want to back up in the cloud. And for this month's webinar, I've partnered with CloudWoods and CloudBerry Lab to host this webinar. And CloudBerry Lab offers cross-platform backup for a host and a variety of different cloud storage services. And with me today here is Eugene Rudinsky, and he's the solution architect of CloudBerry Lab. So he knows the software in and out. He's been certainly participating in developing the majority of the features of CloudBerry. And he's going to help us a little bit of an understand what you guys need to do in order to best back up your data with the help of CloudBerry Lab and third-party cloud storage vendors, for example, Google Drive, Amazon Cloud, OneDrive, maybe Amazon S3, and ultimately we're going to look at how to get unlimited cloud storage with some nifty tricks. So after a small brief introduction in the theoretical part of what a backup actually is and what you need to take into consideration, we jump into CloudBerry Labs and see into CloudBerry Labs software solution and do some practical stuff as well. So without further ado, Eugene, welcome to the webinar. Thank you very much for your time, and I hand the word over to you and the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Mauricio, very much for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm really happy to host this webinar together with CloudBerry, and as has been mentioned before, we're going to be talking about cloud storage, cloud backup, and what are the tools applicable to those challenges. So before we start, I'd like to admit a couple of things here. So first of all, we actually record this webinar. So the link to review, the link to stop the webinar, stop the recording and take a look once again is going to be available shortly. We're going to prepare the link for you and going to share in the follow-up email. We also run this webinar through the tool that contains Q&A box. So that Q&A box is possible to use if you have any comments or questions, or if you want to provide a feedback, feel free to use that. We will try to cover those comments, questions, and feedback. And one of my colleagues is actually helping me today, Anton. And also, just to figure out, what we have on the call from the attendees perspective, we have prepared a few polls. So I'm going to launch, those polls right now. And, if you don't mind, please answer the question. So that's going to give us better understanding what you need and what we need to cover today. So the first poll is going to be this one. So what cloud provider do you use or consider to use for your today's challenges? Where do you keep your data, or where do you consider to keep your data from the cloud perspective? And there are a few answers available, so please place your answer. I'm gonna give few more seconds, just to get to everybody. Okay, so there is a question in Q&A box. I use more than one. Well, try to prioritize and select single. Otherwise, just select other. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm going to close the poll and share results. So this is what we have.
Pretty interesting. Nobody's using Backblaze B2.
Yeah. So we probably need to advertise them. All right, that's great. So I'm going to launch the next poll. And the next poll is going to be, what type of files do you want to back up in the cloud? Personal files, business and server files, my client's file. Okay, almost equally. Excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to close the poll now and share results. Business and server files.
So okay, we have a slightly more business-oriented audience this night or this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Okay, that's give us the picture what we need to focus on during this webinar. Thank you very much for making your choice here during the poll. So we're gonna hide the results now and get back to the slides and talk a little bit about the unlimited cloud storage today. So here's the agenda, what we're going to cover today. So first of all, why cloud storage? Then we're going to be focused on 3 providers like OneDrive, Google Drive, and Amazon Cloud Drive. And we have prepared some benchmarks and results. So we've done some tests around those cloud providers, and we're going to share those results with you. CloudBerry Backup released its version 5.6 this Monday, so essentially yesterday. And I'm just gonna go through, some of the key benefits and key features around that release. So, for example, hybrid backup is one of the hot features that we put on, on deck in the product in that release. So that's going to be interesting talk. And obviously, I will go through all the recently added feature in a product that you may want to use from the cloud backup perspective, as well as from the cloud storage perspective at all. And at the end of the presentation, there will be a demo about CloudBerry Backup and what it's capable with, what it can do for you today. So that's really it. Okay, let's move on. And just in case if you are new to CloudBerry and if you haven't seen CloudBerry before, so here is just a really quick introduction of into CloudBerry world. So since 2011, with over 300,000 customers and 5,000 service providers, we help to work with different cloud storage services like AWS, Microsoft Azure, S3 compatible technology, OpenStack technologies, and etc. And we see it's kind of essential tool for using with cloud storage. So we have products like Explorer when you want to move your files across from your computer to cloud storage. So Explorer is one of that product. If you want to map your, let's say, cloud storage, and if you want to present that cloud storage to your computer, so we have tool which we unofficially call endless disk. Essentially, it's just a way to map your cloud storage to your computer, and then it can be found in my computer, where you can store your files, when you can put your files, upload your files, read them back from the cloud, and that's just going to be part of your computer. So we recently crossed the 100 petabyte threshold of cumulative data transferred by our partners into different cloud providers. So this actually includes AWS S3, Glacier, Microsoft Azure, what else, like Backblaze, OpenStack technology. So we count them in our service provider product. And again, we recently crossed 100 petabytes threshold, which is just an amazing number. And as one of our, as one of the AWS partner network member, we hold leading position in the backup and file management competency for the storage services. So this is all about Amazon, but obviously we do have relationship with other providers. So we provide tools like I mentioned, Explorer, CloudBerry Drive. So these are really essential for managing files across cloud providers and cloud storages. And obviously the flagship product that we have on board is backup. So we have backup available for different platforms, including Windows, Mac, and Linux. And there are also tools available for Microsoft Exchange for SQL. We have native application for QNAP and for Synology. So you can just set it up, set up your NAS box and back up your files on the network share to to the cloud provider of your choice.
What maybe should be pointed out real quick is that you, as CloudBerry, you essentially do not offer cloud storage yourself, if I'm not mistaken, but rather not just, but you provide the interface, an easy-to-use interface for people to connect to different cloud storage services and make it really easy and seamless for either personal or business files.
Absolutely, totally agree. So essentially, we provide the tool that you can use with the cloud provider of your choice. So yeah, so we do not offer the storage. Correct. Okay, let's move on to the part where we talk about cloud storage. So so why cloud storage? Why cloud storage is important, and why should I care? So essentially, cloud storage, offers the way to get the storage without any commitments, because you usually work with cloud storage or cloud provider, in the way like pay-as-you-go model. So some of those cloud providers are like, for example, Amazon S3 or Amazon Cloud Drive or OneDrive or Google Drive. They offer even free tiers where you can get some limited amount of cloud storage for free, either as entry user or even permanently if you don't really have massive amount of data that you want to store in the cloud. So if you just have few documents and you want to store them in the cloud, you can use it even for free. So theoretically, it's unlimited. Well, I personally haven't seen any problems in terms of limitations, like in terms of scalability. From the, let's say, either backup perspective or data storage perspective. Anytime when I uploaded any data, including very, very massive arrays of backup sets to the cloud, I haven't seen any problems. So that's why I'm saying like it's unlimited. But I think it's more like theoretically. But if you face any problems or any challenges around that, so let me know. That's really good talk and really good point to discuss. So usually we see something like the storage is highly available and highly durable. So for example, in Amazon we see the like 11.9 durability when they guarantee durability of your data, and they call it like 11 nines. So which is 99.999999, 11 nines after dot, which means that there is small chance to lose your data. And yeah, that chance is 1 in 100 millions. And yeah, the most important fact here is that we can get access to our data from anywhere. So there are tons of different applications that are written, like for example, CloudBerry can offer you the ability to access your data either using CloudBerry Drive or CloudBerry Explorer, or it can be other third-party application that you can set up with your cloud provider and get access to your data anytime from anywhere. Yeah, essentially ease of configuration, ease of use completely, and the facilities that we have underneath, under the cloud, is not something that we have to manage. So all maintenance, all the hardware failures and software failures around the cloud provider is not really something that we have to care about. So it's fully managed, and we just get a service. So essentially, we just get either web interface, or again, we just use the tool for getting access to our data. Another thing that I need to highlight is that usually we talk about cloud storage, and we probably consider about something like data synchronization. So, for example, we all know about tools like Dropbox. We all know about Google Drive, when we have application or we have web access, where we just drag and drop files and we get them in the cloud. So that's fine. It's kind of tool to interact with with the cloud storage over those tools, or with other users. We just drop off the files into the folder or into web interface, and we can get access to those files later, or we can give access to these files to our colleagues, or to someone from our family, etc., etc. So that's fine. It's more like sync tool for getting access and for file exchange. But what about if I really want to use that storage for my backups? And that's kind of question that we're going to discuss today. So CloudBerry Backup is actually designed for that. So CloudBerry Backup gives you the way to store your backups in the cloud provider of your choice. Again, CloudBerry Backup does not offer any storage capacity, so we are not storage provider. We just provide a tool, like a tool for making automated backup with different really nice features, like we can set the retention, we can set multiple backup destinations, we can compress files, encrypt files, etc. And this is something that I will discuss today in this webinar. Okay, let's move to the first one. Again, as I mentioned in my agenda, as I mentioned in our agenda, so we're gonna talk about these three cloud providers. So the CloudBerry, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and Amazon Drive. And so what we've made recently, we done some tests with these three providers from the performance perspective and from the recommendation perspective. So let me introduce yourself to Google Drive. You all know about Google Drive and what it offers. Essentially, it's a great provider. It offers you up to 15 gigs for free, so you can get registered and keep your data in the cloud, upload your files, generate links and share those links across your company or your colleagues or your friends. Share your documents. That's great. You can also, again, like I mentioned on my previous slide, you can get access to your data from anywhere. There are different applications available for either iOS or Google platform, like Android application, and you can just set it up on your iPhone or your cell phone, your your tablet, and get access to your data, or simply use web interface, or simply use the application for a desktop computer for exchanging your file.
Would something be, sorry to interrupt, would something be possible, for example, to combine Google Drive and CloudBerry Backup to use the backup sets that you create with CloudBerry Backup as a sort of selective synchronization from Google Drive? Because I mean, Google Drive essentially allows people to install a synchronization client on their computers, and they could then activate selective synchronization and only synchronize specific folders from the files in the cloud to their different devices. Would that be possible with the data that you upload via CloudBerry as well?
Yeah, we can work either way. So, for example, like you mentioned, there is a folder, and that folder is kind of watched by the application, Google application, and synced immediately to the cloud. So this can be one of the case. So we can send that folder. We can set that folder as CloudBerry backup destination. So all the backups can arrive to that folder, and then Google Drive can offload that information to the cloud. So this is one of the case. However, we can work natively with Google Drive APIs, and we can offload without this application set up on the computer. And that's just a separate story. So because the first story is going to be kind of local backup, so you just set up the backup agent to store your backups locally. So your backup destination is going to be a local folder. And again, so that local folder is going to be watched by the application. And if there are any updates in that folder, it's just going to sync that folder immediately with the cloud destination. So that's possible. However, CloudBerry contains native support of APIs, and we can just offload the information separately in a separate stream. But that's great. Yeah, thanks. So moving forward, and let's talk a little bit about the pricing model. Again, up to 15 gigs we can get for free. But if we want to, let's say, to get more capacity available, so we can get a paid package like up to $1.99 per month for 100 gigabytes, and we can store our either data or backup sets. And the table here that you can see on that slide actually talks about different types of backup sets that we tried. So when we talk, well, the small column is actually a combination of 1 kilobyte files. So we set about 10,000 1 kilobyte files, and we started to offload those files in different number of threads. So in that column here, you can see 1 thread, 10 threads, 25, and 50. So when I talk about threads, I'm talking about parallel uploads. So when we upload files, or just a single file, if the file is large enough, or when we upload multiple files, we just upload them in parallel. So multiple files are going to the cloud in parallel. And here we talk about number of threads, number of parallel threads. And when we talk about large files, like here, so medium and large sets. So medium is actually from 5 up to 10 megabyte file size, up to 3 gigs backup set. And this is the large. So the large is actually over 5 megabyte file sets. And we can see that for large files, we work pretty good comparing to small and medium in one thread. And we can see that kind of thread for multiple threads as well, like 10, 25, 50. Etc.
How would that translate? For example, I could imagine that some of the people in our attendees, they would, for example, like to back up their Outlook PST files, I think they're called. How would that translate into this table?
Well, I would say that the most important thing is this is all. I mean, threads are more like configuration setting in the product, in our product. But I'm pretty sure threads as a term is also mentioned in other third-party applications. So essentially, when we talk about large files, like you gave me example of PST files, so I would say that the most important here is think about the number of threads. So for example, 25, 50. Or even like 10 and 25. So that's actually gives us the most efficient result, like, because all these tests were done with pretty the same amount of overall backup sets. So like 25 minutes. As you can see, the one thread, a large file in one thread is very slow, but 10 and 25 threads is quite fast. And when we have 50 threads, so it means that the large file is being uploaded in 50 parallel threads. So that's actually gave us 20 minutes. So I believe this is something related to the Google Drive limitation, because Google Drive is comparing to Amazon as to Google Cloud Provider, which is the other platform from Google, is kind of more like for a consumer for a files exchange. So that's why when we start to use more threads, like 50 threads, so that's why we see that number is just so the performance is decreasing instead of increasing. All right, so let's move on and talk a little bit about the Amazon Cloud Drive. So it's pretty the same like Google Drive. Again, so the test that we done for exactly the same configuration, we can see here on the table, but just really quickly around the drive. So up to 5 gigs you get as a Prime user, and they are coming for free. And it's affordable and easy to use storage for keeping our files and documents. And again, so we can either set up the application and use the the folder for syncing with Google Cloud Drive over certain folder, or we can use CloudBerry or any other product with API, like with support of Amazon Cloud Drive API. To offload data directly with all these capabilities that I will be talking about in just a few minutes.
Yeah, and Amazon
again,
Cloud Drive is probably quite interesting for a lot of consumers, maybe even for businesses, who knows, but because they still offer the unlimited plan for storing files in the cloud. I mean, I think they have the photo plan or something, but then they have also the unlimited plan that's actually quite affordable.
Absolutely. And as you can see, when we talk about the size of the file that we want to offload, so comparing to Google, so the medium file size or the medium backup set actually won here. So again, so the medium is files around 2 up to 5 megabytes each, and the overall backup set was around 2 up to 3 gigs. So somewhere around this number. Actually, I have one more slide after the next one, and that's gonna represent the overall results and the comparison. So you just get a better understanding which one to use and when, in what case. And again, the most important fact here is just try to figure out what kind of files you want to work with, either large files or multiple small files, like a few kilobytes, like we have here, a small colon or a medium colon, a large one, and consider about the threads. So threads essentially is the configuration of our product, but it can be also in any other product, because it's all related to parallel upload, also known as multi-thread or multi-thread upload, multi-part upload. So OneDrive from Microsoft, again, it's quite affordable storage from Microsoft, 3 up to 5 gigs. And if you want to get more, we can pay $1.99 per month, and that's going to give us 50 gigs. But you can actually get all the plans right here on that link. And again, comparing to Google Drive and to Amazon Cloud Drive, we see that large files are better to use here. And again, so we need to use them in certain, not like a one thread. So we need to consider to change threads like 10 or 25 threads. And again, like I promised, let's take a look at the overall picture. So we have again different backup sets. So we have a small backup set, which is 10,000 1 kilobyte files. And if you take a look at this at this part of the picture, so we see that Microsoft actually gave us better result comparing to Amazon and Google. So that's from the let's say from the performance perspective. So if we take a look at the medium file sets, which is from 4 up to 15 megabytes, and the total is about 3 gigs. So we see it's pretty the same. So Microsoft, it takes a lead here, slight lead comparing to Amazon and Google Drive. And in large sets, we certainly see a big progress in Amazon Cloud Drive. Yeah, by the way, if you want to see the full research, we have it published here. So the material will be shared with you. Don't worry about that. So you can get the direct link to that document and review for more details. All right, so let's move on to the CloudBerry Backup 4.6 features. So we introduced, as I said earlier, we introduced 5.6, CloudBerry Backup 5.6, and it comes with a number of really good features. So one of the features is hybrid backup, and it's really great from the 3-to-1 perspective. So consider, I mean, 3-to-1 perspective is kind of, quite famous and popular approach. So it talks about backups in three copies of your backup in 2 different locations with at least one offsite. And hybrid backup essentially helps us to do that, because hybrid backup is the way to configure your single backup coming into two destinations. So we can configure backup to store our backups initially on some of the local storage, let's say network share or network NAS box, for example, and then we can offload that information to one of the cloud provider, including cloud providers that we just discussed. So the chain backup can help us to, let's say, to execute our backup plans in a row. So we can just set up fewer plans, and if we have dependencies between those plans, so for example, the first should go first and then second, etc. So we introduce backup chain. It's pretty good. So Backblaze, no one selected Backblaze. However, block level backup has been introduced for Backblaze. So now it's better to backup incremental backups, because there is no need to offload full backups again on the following run. Encryption and compression. So these were kind of key features, and we heard them quite frequently from our customers. So we introduced encryption and compression for Google Drive and for Amazon Cloud Drive. So if you used one of that provider, feel free to use CloudBerry Backup with encryption and compression, which is the way to get more security and more and get less storage utilization from the backup perspective. So Minio, I don't know if you
just let me chime in here real quick for encryption, because I suppose what CloudBerry does is you can encrypt files locally before they're actually sent to Google Drive and Amazon Cloud Drive. Am I correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So right. and that's especially for business owners, or privacy concerned consumers. This is crucial because, and especially for businesses outside of the US, for example, in Europe, that have special data privacy concerns regarding their data being in the US. So when you own the encryption key, when you own that on your computer, no one from those providers, Amazon or Google or whatever other provider there is, can actually decipher or see your files, right? Because you are in control of the key. If you upload files to Amazon S3 like in a standard way, yes, Amazon does encrypt your files, but technically they are in control of the key, and they could see or decrypt your files. So I think that's like a very specific feature that I just wanted to highlight again, that encryption before sending files to the cloud.
That's right. Yeah. So that's why lots of our customers and prospects were asking for that feature, and essentially, and eventually we introduced that feature in 5.6. So now before sending, the data is being encrypted and compressed. All right, so just a little bit about Minio. So Minio is open source, has 3 compatible storage. We see it's it's really applicable to the cases when you have your own storage facilities and you want to transition that storage facility into object storage. object storage. So Mini actually helps here, and we started to support Mini in 5.6. And also 5.6 contains a lot of enhancement and different hot fixes in a product. Okay. Yeah, just to highlight really what we have on board of our product. Again, as I said recently, the backup is the flagship product from our side. So we have agents available for Windows. So Windows actually has over 10 years of history. And I mean, I mentioned that we are since 2011, but we were available earlier with with a standalone version of our product. In 2011, we introduced a provider's version of the product and the platform called MBS. But we were available earlier, and so the Windows version of the product is over 10 years for now. So that's why it's more, it's more like feature rich, I would say. It contains not only file level backup, but also the ability to back up entire system, just in case if you, let's say, if you want to restore your entire computer in case of failure to either dissimilar hardware, or if you want to try your computer in the cloud. So there's EC2 instance restore, for example, or Microsoft Azure, if we talk about Microsoft Cloud technologies. So we can do kind of physical to cloud migration. You can try your computer, how it fits to cloud, and how your computer can run in the cloud. And there are also some other some other features, breakthrough technologies, like we can restore image-based backup as just a virtual machine on top of VMware, for example, a virtual machine, like a VMware virtual machine or Microsoft Hyper-V virtual machine. So it's all supported here. So it's all about image-based backup and capabilities that we have available. So in macOS, just in case if you run Mac operating system, so the backup agent available for macOS as well. So it's only capable with file level backup. So you can set up your backup sets, and you can point your backup sets to your file, so your user's data can be offloaded to the cloud provider of your choice. So Linux backup, similar to Mac. So also file level backup with some of the key features like encryption, compression, very flexible retention policy. Comes with user interface or command line interface, depends on your skills and how exactly you want to configure your backups. How you're comfortable to configure them, either through the terminal or using the user interface. So just a little bit about hybrid backup. I already mentioned, so it's great to follow 3-to-1 rule when we have 3 copies of our backup in 2 different destinations with at least one offsite. So this is where hybrid backup is really good fit, and it's available since 5.6. So we're gonna go into demo part just in a few minutes. And yeah, so just an example, we can keep the initial backup, let's say, somewhere in our network attached storage or in local computer, and at the same time, this backup can offload this information to the cloud. So that's going to just follow 3-to-1 rule. All right. So before going to to the demo, I just want to check quickly, are there any questions?
No, there are no questions so far, but maybe we can just now, when you switch to the demo, next 1 or 2 minutes or so, maybe there's popping some question up, and then I can read them out to you. Okay, excellent. So we just moved to the demo, and that's the interface of the product. So that's CloudBerry Backup Ultimate Edition. As you can see, it's Windows built, but again, we do have Mac built and Linux built, just in case if you want to protect your data for those platforms as well.
Just a really huge list of different storage providers that we support today. We've been talking about Amazon Cloud Drive. We've been talking about Google Drive right here. And we were talking about OneDrive from Microsoft. All these cloud providers are added into my product, Amazon, Google Drive, and OneDrive, and I can actually start to set up my backup sets using those cloud providers as destination for my backups. So that's my existing backup, and it's a hybrid backup where the initial destination set to file share of like file system. It's my network share, and the second destination is set to B2, but I can also change it to any provider that I have added recently into my product.
Can I select any folder for any storage system for the hybrid backup for the local backup? So can I say I want to back up to this external hard drive or that NAS or?
Absolutely, yeah. As the first, like a local storage. So the hybrid backup works in conjunction with local storage, right? So the first iteration is going to be to the local file share, to the local file system. It can be either local disk or a separate disk, or it can be a network share presented through the UNC path like / and then your path. Can be anything that you can attach to your computer and access through the network. And this hybrid backup like file share is actually my network share, my UNC path, like my Samba share. And the second one is the cloud storage provider. And again, it's a Backblaze, but it can be anything from the list. So now we just select some of the important options that we want to work with. So for example, VSS is very important when we want to get access to the data which might be accessed by something else. So for example, we run the backup for PSD files, and they are, let's say, induced by our Outlook application or by other applications. So by using VSS, we can get access to this data because the snapshot for entire volume is taken, and we can get access to to the data, and that's actually guarantees transactionally consistent backup for us. So it's kind of best practice for all the backup vendors. So a block level backup, again, I mentioned that briefly in B2 introduction, but the block level backup is great when we work with, let's say, large files, and we expect changes in those large files. So by having enabled block level backup, we next time offload only changed blocks to the storage, so I mean the product, the CloudBerry backup just searches for changed blocks, compares these blocks with the data which is already in the cloud, and if those blocks are changed, so they are marked for offload, and that's just going to be that effective part of the file offloaded to the storage. But still, it's going to give us the point for restart. It's kind of incremental block level backup. So just really quickly, we define what should be backed up. So essentially, we define the source. As you can see, that can be a network share attached to our backups. So we can define, let's say, a UNC path or whatever we want to backup. So we can work with advanced filter by picking up only files of that type, or by picking up the files that have been modified that number of days before, and so some other things here. So that's the point here. I mentioned that we do support encryption and compression before sending to the cloud, and now it's available for Amazon and for Google, for Amazon Cloud Drive, sorry, and for Google Drive. So we can enable this feature, and the files are going to be encrypted before sending to the cloud. All right, so retention, we may want to do that on certain basis. So for example, we set the folder and we generate changes in that folder, and we want to get the automated backup for that folder. So that can be done through the retention policy with the certain scheduler. So we can do that on certain basis, like specific day, or we can set the recurring. So the backup chain, I mentioned that there is a new feature in the 5.6. So the backup chain gives us the ability to run the following backup plan after this one. So once we finished, or once we either successfully finished, or with any status finished that plan, we're just gonna kick off the other plan, which is great for making that in a row. So for example, we have some dependencies, so we can do that using that backup chain feature. Okay, so notification, and that's it really. So the plan is ready. So it's either going to be launched automatically based on the scheduler, or we can kick it off right now by playing that plan from the UI. So we can get all the plans right here on that step. And when we talk about the backups, obviously we talk about the backups of the data in the cloud, and we want to get access to the data. We essentially want to restart. And so in the backup storage section, we see all the available storage providers. We can just expand them and take a look at the available data. So for example, what we have here, so we have Cloud Drive. So we have the C drive, share, and then some images folder, and so we have that list of folder. By clicking on that file, I can just restore it from here. So that's going to give me a wizard where I select what I'd like to restore, which version of the file. I can just select it. If I want to add more files to that restore, I can do that. I can use just the only one, which has been selected recently. Restore to a specific location. Let's do that quickly, to the desktop. Yep, to the desktop.
We have a quick question here from Bavik. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. He asks if you could please explain a little bit what retention means.
Okay, so retention means that you set, well, retention means that it's actually a combination of backup frequency along with the time when you execute it, along with the number of copies that you want to keep in the cloud. So for example, you run 7 days retention policy on daily basis, means that after 1 week of backup, you're going to have 7 points for the restart, and those 7 points after that first week will start to update the eldest version. Like retention will keep an eye on the overall number of points in your backup set, in your restore in your cloud. So for example, all these 7 points will be updated on the 8th run. So when we run it after 1 week, so the eldest point will be updated to the newest one. I don't know how to explain. Mauricio, maybe you can explain better.
No, I mean, I think you have it explained well, but I think what may be a little problematic for people is they have, I mean, different cloud storage providers, they have different retention policies, right? So, for example, if they have, if you look at I mean, I can compare it to consumer backup services, for example, Backblaze, right? So you have an external hard drive, and that external hard drive, they have a policy where that external hard drive needs to be connected every 30 days, because otherwise the files that you back up with them are going to be deleted after that retention period of 30 days, right? That's something you have to certainly control with any cloud backup service that you're essentially using. I'm not sure if CloudBerry can assist in the retention model a little bit, or if you have specific features here to help people manage that?
Yeah, to answer this question, I just want to go to the backup user once again. So what we have here, so we have a step which is called retention policy, where we can define, how many versions we want to keep in the backup set in the cloud, and number of versions, and when we want to start our backup plan to purge the data. And again, as I mentioned before, retention is actually number of versions that we keep in the cloud in combination with the schedule. So it's either like run on certain basis, like we can do that daily, and if we set 7 points for a daily backup, that means that we're gonna get access to our backups, to the last 7 days, to the last week.
And you essentially do this until the storage is exhausted on a particular cloud storage provider. So for example, if I have 20 gigabyte limit on Google Drive and I set up 100 versions or something like that, would CloudBerry warn you in any case that the storage is going to be exhausted soon if another version is saved, or how would that work?
Yeah, so we have thresholds in the product that you may want to set in the in the backups, and the cumulative number will be compared to that threshold which is set for the certain storage, and will warn you when you get closest to this number. So essentially, we have all these triggers in the product. Yep. Okay, I think we are getting to the point where we just want to take a look at the questions if we have any, and if not, we just want to wrap up and close the session.
So there is a question, why no mention of the most popular cloud storage sharing provider, Dropbox? I assume you do not support it or don't recommend it.
No, we don't support it.
Yeah, and that's, I think Dropbox, they don't offer an API as far as I know. They're not as open as other provider in that regard. What you can say certainly is that, Dropbox cannot really be considered a backup, because if you only have your files in one place with one storage provider, that's generally something that we at CloudWords and CloudBerry Lab certainly also wouldn't recommend that. So, Dropbox works fine for the day-to-day average file synchronization and file sharing with people and families and friends and collaborators. But it shouldn't be considered a foolproof backup solution, which is what CloudBerry Labs is advocating, and what we also here in CloudWords advocate. So yeah, this is, it's always a trade-off, right? So if you choose Dropbox, you pay for the storage amount and also for the usability, because it's easy to use, it generally works well, but it is not a foolproof solution. And if you dig a little deeper into the facts, and if you really want the best security and encryption, because we've been mentioning encryption before and how important it is to really secure your data, then it's certainly a risk to use Dropbox and not, for example, CloudBerry, to encrypt your files before you submit them. If you say, well, I don't have a problem with submitting my files to a US cloud storage provider without encryption, well then maybe Dropbox is the way to go for you. But keep in mind you need an extra backup for your files.
Yep, absolutely. And so there is another question about pCloud. Absolutely the same number. It's all related to the API support and the performance, and what kind of value you can get from that storage. If it's good for for files exchange, so that's fine. It's probably stand for that. But we don't know if it's applicable for backups and massive amount of arrays and backup sets, etc.
Yeah, so I mean, pCloud is essentially well, in my opinion, a better version of Dropbox, because they have, if you pay for it extra, they have built-in security, and they have a drive that is embedded into your operating system, so you can really use it as a drive in the cloud, so to speak. And obviously, you can, if you like, you can schedule your backups on pCloud. But it is certainly also just one cloud storage solution. And the beauty of multiple storage solutions is, and what you can use with CloudBerry is that you can really spread your data and really create the level of security that you or your business needs with your backups. And that's what we were also targeting a little bit with the topic of the webinar, is if you combine your cloud storage smartly, meaning using the newest version of CloudBerry Lab and maybe using Amazon Cloud Drive, where you can get unlimited cloud storage for a very affordable cost, and then also maybe use Amazon S3 or other cloud archival solutions that are not unlimited, but they have very reasonably priced storage plans, because they're made for archival. Or even the newest Backblaze B2, which nobody has checked out before, as the poll suggested, is very reasonably priced and works very well, and they keep improving it. And they can be used in combination with Amazon Cloud Drive to ultimately have a very comfortable backup plan for all your files. And then on top of that, this is what I personally recommend, and what I personally do is I recommend a file sharing or file synchronization solution. For example, pCloud, but I won't use it for my backups, period.
All right, excellent. So thanks, Mauricio, to cover the last question. And thanks everyone for attending this webinar. All products from CloudBerry available in 15 days trial mode, so you can just get them directly using that link, cloudberrylab.com. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We will provide the best assistance.
Yeah, sure. You can either send me an email, mauricio@cloudwits.net, or even on the email that you see here on the screen. They're more than happy to help you. I'm seeing just like 2 more questions concerning other service providers. And essentially what I just told you, it counts the same for pCloud, is synchronization, like SpiderOak, for example, cannot really be considered a backup, in my opinion. It should always be an add-on for what you need, for example, collaboration. But yeah, thank you very much for all attendees for this webinar. Thank you very much, Eugene, for this awesome presentation, and for taking the time to really walk us through all those nitty-gritty details, and especially showing us this speed comparison of the different cloud storage provider. I think people can now really make a good decision on what they need and want to try out, at least. And maybe we could also shed some light on the B2 storage part. Maybe that's also something that somebody will use in combination with CloudBerry Backup. So again, thank you very much for being here today, and I hope I see you guys all in the next webinar. And again, thank you very much, Eugene, for your collaboration here.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great week.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.